welcome back to a new video. Now this video is going to be slightly different to the normal video. Obviously we're going to be working on one of the cars, we're going to be working on the Brat today, but we're going to be doing a wide body kind of DIY video. So I haven't really done anything kind of in depth of how I've done it before. So this video is going to be in a few parts. So for any of you guys that are new to the channel, I make a lot of stuff by hand for the cars, and I've made a wide body for the SVX you may have seen in other videos. So today we working on the wide body for the pickup, the front today anyway, and we're working on making the kind of the molds, the shapes that will eventually fiberglass off of. Now a lot of videos you see people making it out of kind of foam, stuff like that. I'm going to go for a box style kind of over fender, kind of like a classic old school style, so we're using wood, so a little bit different. Let's just get into it, okay? Okay, so the tools you will need, pretty minimal for this stage, so something obviously to draw with, mark stuff, a clamp or two, something to cut the wood with, because it's very thin plywood we're using, so a knife is fine. If not, we can use a jigsaw there, tape measure. Now the wood I've got here, this is 3mm plywood I'm going to be using to make the initial shape out of. Now, you're probably wondering how I got that shape out of there. Pretty simple. That's how I got that shape. All I did, found the center of this giant piece of wood, drilled a hole, put a bolt through it, measured out how far I wanted the arch to sit above the actual wheel line, measured that, put a giant screw through this piece of wood, scored it all the way around on both sides of that piece of wood, used a really heavy duty screw. Because it's 3mm, it's tiny, it scores through it and gives you a perfect circle. Pretty easy to do. Takes, it doesn't take too long, but a little bit of patience. It's perfect if you haven't got a router or access to it. If you've never used one before and don't really want to get into it, you just want something that gives you a perfect circle. That's the thing to do. So the wood's all cut out. I did that at work because simply I couldn't get this sheet of wood in my car to get to here, so I did it at work. So I haven't got a video of that, unfortunately, but you can imagine it's pretty straightforward. So next thing we've got to do is we've got to take off a few little bits on the car, the headlight and the indicator. So we'll get this off now. Now you may be wondering why I'm going to be using wood for this. Now the reason is the shape I want is quite a classic style, I'd say, relatively simple. The other reason is I can do one side, lay it on top of the other piece of wood and mimic it exactly, so it's exactly the same, because something like that would really bug me. Plus wood is pretty easy to work with, pretty much everyone can work with it, it's super easy to do. So that's kind of like my main reasonings. That's it. So right now we're going to do some measuring. Now everything's off the car. There's only a few bits off the car. So what we're going to do is take some measurements. Well, the first measurement I'm going to be going for is, say, from around here to here. So I'm going to kind of work this out where I'm going to cut this, because this is going to be cut up here. So I'm going to work that out. And then start cutting. Right, now we've got the kind of rough position where the first cut is going to be made. I'm going to go slightly oversized, obviously, so if I make a mistake I've got a little bit to work with. But I'm going to offer up this piece of wood to the wheel and get that kind of line where I want it to sit, mark it, and then do the first cut. So the first cut's done, try it on for size and see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got a rough idea where it's going to go now. Obviously the wood is oversized and kind of awkward to handle, so I'm just going to cut off some excess and make it a little bit easier to handle. Obviously it's quite long, so I'm going to take some off the back where it meets the door. It needs to be quite short, and then once we've done that, we can work out how high we need to go with it. So we'll cut off some of the height as well, and basically making the whole thing easier to use, so we can start clamping it in place and then you know, start making some more shapes out of it. Now it's a little bit shorter. Obviously we've still got a lot of excess up the top there. We definitely don't need that. Well, we might need it, but obviously not for this section right now. Obviously what I'm going to do, the main part of the overfend is probably going to have to be on here, so not too high. I'm going to make it higher anyway, just in case. Again, if I mess up, I've got a little bit to play with. So it's going to make it more manageable. So once this is on, well, once this is cut even, we can I'm going to start clamping it on. I'm going to clamp the end on here, and then use some little bit of excess timber I've got there, some small bit of timber, and make kind of spaces to space away from the fender and the new over fender. Okay, so done some trimming, got it in place, it's kind of sketchy the way it's held on, it's just the way it is at the moment. So done some trimming, that's the shape I've got currently. So obviously we're trying to follow the line, the swage line from there to there, and obviously you're going to chop at the bottom there, so it follows on there. Got that a reasonably good position now. Obviously when the wheel turns it's going to hit that, so I've got to trim that and give it a bit more shape, make it look a bit smoother, pull it out here as well, but you can kind of see the angle I've got at the moment. Now what I did here as well is obviously just clamp this onto my wing. I did soak this a little bit with water just to help it flex, and when it dries obviously it'll stick more in that position, but you can see the kind of flare that we're getting out of it. It's starting to look pretty cool. So a little bit of chopping, a bit of shaping, moving the wheel around and see how much clearance we get. Okay, now I've turned the wheel a fair amount, and obviously you can see where it's touching there. It's touching on the tyre there, so it'll give it a bit more shape. But obviously this shape isn't great at the moment, so I want to make it fly a bit more. So definitely got to cut that anyway. This is too harsh a curve to look good, I think personally. So we'll chop that off and then reattach it and see what it looks like. Right, okay, so it's been a lot of messing around. What I've been doing is pretty kind of tedious and boring, and it would have been a lot of the same thing for you guys, but quite simply I've made kind of chock some spaces and used them to kind of push out the actual line of the over fender. I've got it in place now, so I've checked the actual steering angle to make sure it clears. It clears pretty well. The car at the moment is sitting not a little bit, but lower than normal, because I put softer springs on the shock, so it's sunk a little bit. So I will adjust it, so when I put it up a little bit, obviously I'm going to get more clearance. So here we are, that's what we're looking at the moment. Obviously got it clamped on the front there of the wing, and then a chock there, that is running, and that's touching the spring of the coilover, and that's just there, that's being held by the jack. So I might have to work out something to hold that end bit in place, but it's all in place at the moment, so you can kind of see the shape of it like that. It's actually working out quite nicely. So that's obviously that angle I cut there for clearance. At the back I'm going to do something very similar. I might kind of like kick it down that way a little bit, not sure yet. So what I'm going to do for the top section, going to use the kind of like fabric method. A lot of people use spandex. So what you do is you'll kind of, you know, tape a piece of kind of spandex across the top there, stretch it down, tape it to here, or staple it. Once that's on, obviously it's going to be a nice kind of natural shape. I mean, no kind of puckers in it. After that's in shape, you just cover it in resin. That obviously goes hard, and then it gives you a nice solid surface to work off. So once that's on and dried, you can lay the fiberglass over it, and yeah, you've got the beginnings of an over fender, and then the kind of fun begins. So that's going to be the end of that video. There's going to be obviously more in this series, going to keep it pretty short and sweet, or try to anyway. So the next phase will be getting that material, taking it to the wing, and then stretching it, and then putting resin on it to make it hard, and then glassing over it. So once we've done that section, or done that part, once it's hard, we can put a layer of glass over it and start to kind of get that shape. And once we've got that initial layer of fiberglass, it's kind of all downhill from there. It's gonna be pretty straightforward. You know, might be a few bits they need to add, take away, a bit of trimming, but so all that stuff's really really simple. The hardest part was actually this part. It actually really confused me a lot of times. You know, with clearances and things like that. So yeah, it did take me a while to work that out, but I've never done that kind of method before, so it was just me kind of figuring things out. But it's working out pretty well. So that'll be it for the episode. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please do, and check out all the other videos, and I will see you guys real soon.
Subscribe, you fools.